We are going to look at the different phases of RPA project that's there. And then we are going to deep dive into each phase and see exactly what the solution architect role pertains to in those specific phases. Stages of an RPA project looks something like this. The first step is the enablement phase, wherein you actually go ahead and choose the kind of deployment option that you want for your complete RPA program to run. You do the actual installations, and this installations will pertain to your orchestrator, robots, your supporting systems, and things like that. You will also do the configurations that is required, and when I say configurations, it could be your the way your robot needs to behave, kind of some kind of governance models, your queue setups, things like that. When I say queue setup, not regarding to that project related, is just the general ones. And then we also make sure that we configure the development, testing, and production environments. So that's when we finalize the infrastructure setup. Once the infrastructure setup is complete, we enter into the project governance model. And when we talk about project governance, it's under the preparation phase, and preparation phase can be divided into two parts. One is the general preparation, and the other one is project specific preparation. When we talk about general preparation, it's about introducing the best practices, coding standards, and version control systems, and what else? Anything that is related to a general overview of whatever is happening in your RPA projects, anything that is going to support that. So one of the major things that you need to do is set up a central knowledge repository. This is something that most of the people miss, but this is one of the important points to make sure that happens in the preparation phase itself, so that whatever learning you have is being recorded somewhere, and the new ones who is entering this particular program has an easy time to get onboarded and use the knowledge of the veterans who have already worked on certain projects. We also talk about the development approach that we're going to take. What is the kind of stand-up calls that is going to happen? How long will be the UAT or hypercare period that will last? How the code review will happen, things like that. So those things are also discussed here itself. And in the implementation side, you talk about the frameworks and best practices. And we'll talk about these in details when we go ahead. And when we talk about the per process basis, what we do in preparation phase is, first of all, it's about the feasibility. We do the cost benefit analysis, and we see whether the project is feasible to go under automation or not. If we automate it, whether it is going to benefit the complete program, if it is going to bring certain quality improvements, certain ROI, things like that, whatever is the objective associated with it. We also point out bottlenecks and challenges that might be there, and this is done in this particular phase, so that if we have a scope of process improvement, we undertake that, we do that before we can go ahead with other phases. And then any potential improvements in the process, that is also being done there. And then comes the other part, which is the design phase. In the design phase, we do the process design document, which means that once we have the process walkthrough, and process walkthrough, by the way, is the part of preparation phase itself. Once we have those process walkthrough, once we understand all the details of it, we come to the design phase, wherein we prepare the process design document with all our understandings, the input-output data, the exception handlings that is going to be there, and all the process steps, step-by-step documents, things like that. We develop the associated test cases with that, and we make sure the data that is going to be used for the test cases are ready as well. And then we come to designing the solution as well. The next one is the build phase. In the build phase, you do the actual coding, as you already know. We build the workflows, we do the functional and unit testing, and we create a SDD or DSD documents that will document all the technicality of the project. The next one is the test. Test is where you study the test case reports, and you take the decision whether the project is sound enough to go into the production. It's a go or no go call that you do in the quality assurance. And once you're confirmed that this project is at par to the quality of the production, we go into production. And after the production, the last phase is the hypercare, where we support the operations team for a while so that they understand what kind of exceptions they are expected to see, what are the things that they need to do to improve, or what are the kind of things they need to do to report these kind of things to the business and things like that. And we also manage the change requests that comes in during the hypercare, because we all know that we cannot know everything while developing the project itself. So basically, the ideal would be to block everything and go ahead and develop, but that's not the ideal thing. And we cannot live in fantasy land. So you have to plan for everything. Even if there is a change that is coming in during the build phase, you have to account for that. And even if it is after your hypercare period, during the hypercare period, you have to account for that as well. As a solution architect, you have the responsibility of making it as easy for the team that is executing it. Basically here in this case, that's the developer. He should not be bogged down. You have to plan it in a way so that he also feels at ease that, okay, if there is certain extra time that needs to be added, that will be added. You will balance the expectation between the business and the technical team. And it's one of the skills that you will be harnessing over the period of time. All right, so in the terms of what solution architect actually does in these kind of phases, let's just discuss the exact activities that needs to be done. In the enablement phase, there is I already told you that there is an initial infra setup. Now, the solution architect, they themselves don't go ahead and install the things that is required, but they are somebody who decides what is the kind of installation that is going to happen. Okay, what is the deployment options that is available, whether it will be on-prem, whether it will be cloud, whether it will be high availability, disaster recovery, all those kind of permutation and combinations that is available. You have to make the best decision of establishing this infrastructure setup. And this is important because this is not going to impact just one project. It is going to impact all the complete RPA program that is going to run. And as a solution architect, your role is to understand the specific requirements of the clients. And there could be a specific requirement of having, for example, a dashboarding solution. So you have to understand that what is the best way to go forward for that, whether you want insights to be installed, which is another UiPath product, and integrates directly with it, or will Kibana will do with the requirements that they have in hand. You also have to consider whatever resources are already available with the clients. For example, if they have some kind of setup where high density robots can go in, so why not utilize that instead of going for an alternative? If that is feasible, let's do that instead of going and asking them to deploy 3 or 4 VDIs more. And you also have to keep in mind the bigger picture for the enterprise. What are they thinking in terms of this automation program? So I'll go to an example here. There was this client who recently got AI Fabric, and they deployed a very niche process. And the process was something like, it was done for one category out of maybe 10 or 15 categories right now as a starting point. And the process is something that can be replicated for all the 10 categories. And then the kind of variations or the kind of spread of that particular process is so much that it cut across geographies. So there are minor tweaks, but it is going to cut across all the geographies. And the idea for the client was, let's just start with one category for one region, and then we are going to expand into other regions using this particular idea. Okay, so as a solution architect, for example, if I would see only the microscopic view of that particular process for that particular region, for that particular category, I might be inclined to use very less parameters for the, very less parameters that will decide my setup in terms of what the model will go in. Okay, there will be a lot less parameters to deal with. But when you see the larger picture, wouldn't it make sense to have to account for all the data from across the geographies, maybe in phase wise, but be prepared for it. Maybe see what are the kind of things that is going to impact other regions as well, if we take into consideration for this particular region and things like that. So once you have that macroscopic view, the vision that the enterprise has, you have the flexibility of deciding how your solutions are going to be for the pilot runs as well, so that tomorrow when you want to expand the process, and I'm not talking only about the scaling in terms of additional robots here, I'm talking about scaling of the process itself in terms of accommodating multiple scenarios. So you have to make it in a way so that it accommodates the future requests with as little modification or as little efforts as required. The next is the prepare phase. In the prepare phase, you brainstorm a lot of ideas in terms of best practices. You get a starting guideline from UiPath already, but people like to customize it, and people like to know that what scenario best fit for their organization. So you kind of like agree to that. What will be your best practices that you're going to follow for your RPA developments. You establish the coding standards, how the if blocks will look, for example, or what will be the naming conventions and things like that. You establish on the framework that will be used. RE framework is the go-to one for UiPath, hands down. You have everything configured there. Then you also decide on the version system that you are going to use and how it is going to be. You collaborate with BA on the feasibility, and this is the time when you start studying the processes, and you start to understand whether the process is doable in its current form, whether it is we are able to convert it into an automation project. We do effort estimation, one of the challenging parts, and whatever I'm saying right now, it's all the rules that where the solution architect will be involved. So development effort estimation is one of the challenging ones in the prepare phase that you need to do. We'll discuss about these things as well. And then you plan what is the kind of hurdles or the meetings, as you say, will be there. What will be the frequency of it, or what will be the point of having like, the kind of update things that happens. When do you want to have those kind of meetings as well? Then comes the design phase, wherein right now you had a lot of discussions with the BA in the prepare phase, right? In the feasibility options, and you took the process walkthrough and everything. In the design phase, you complete the PDD documents, and one of the signatory is the solution architect as well. So from your perspective, as a solution architect perspective, you see whether the process that has been stated, both as is and the to be, is very accurate in terms of what was discussed. It's not ambiguous at all. Whatever in scope process is there, it is well documented with no ambiguity. And in the to be document, it specifies exactly what is the kind of modification that was required to as is to adjust it to the current scenario. I mean, the one that will go into the RPA project. Then you decide on the modularity of the project, as in what will be the division, whether there will be sub-processes that are going to be formed, and if the sub-processes are formed, what are the kind of modules within that sub-processes that will be there. You identify the reusable components that can be extracted out of this project, which will be reused across the modules and across the sub-processes. You configure the queues, and you decide on the schedules, and you decide on the configuration items that is going to be there. And when I say configuration items, it could be your assets, it could be your local config files and things like that. Everything is decided, and maybe you can design and implement it here itself from the configuration perspective. And then you debate on all the outstanding challenges of the PDD, the document. There will be a lot of times when you have differences with the BA. You have to have those brainstorming sessions where you come to the conclusion whether the things that you feel is not technically feasible, whether there is an alternative to that you can do so that it is included in the RPA scope right now, or do you want to exclude it right away. So those kind of things will happen in the design phase. In the build phase, again, like I said, so during the develop, you tend to get the change request. So the first thing first, you have to do that kind of management as well. Whatever the extra requirement are coming in, you have to have a sign off for those things as well. Process owners should agree that this is something that is really necessary and needs to be included. You become the mentors of the developers, and when I said the mentors, you are the go-to person for the developers, and they have to look up to you. And when I say that, it's a huge responsibility. You have to be technically sound, absolutely sound. If they come to you and ask for a solution that, look, I'm trying to automate with ServiceNow, and this is the challenge that I'm facing. So for example, you have to have 2 or 3 alternatives that you can suggest. Okay, we have a ServiceNow connector, why not use that? We have ServiceNow activities available, why not use that as well? And sometimes you have to deep dive with them, sit with them and code with them. At times, so if there is a difficult part that they are not able to do it, it's as a solution architect, it's your responsibility to help them as much as you can. It's not like that you are doing their parts. Be aware of that as well. It's just that if it's a really tough task or it's a corner cases, pick it up, do it for them. And then again, like I said, in the prepare phase, when we have a central repository, knowledge repository, try to log those kind of cases there as well, so that for the future reference, developers can be redirected to there, that okay, we have a solution, something similar like that, you can refer to there. Troubleshooting and debugging, this is also something that you have to be very sure of. There will be at times that the developers, even though they test, they will miss out on certain things. You have to make sure that they don't. For that, you can have a peer review strategy. You can yourself sit with them and do the troubleshooting if they are facing any bugs. What is exactly that is going wrong? You have to make sure that the logging and reporting requirements that have come in the design phase while discussing with the owners is being taken care of on a modular level as well. RE framework takes care of the higher level logging requirements, but if there is some kind of MI reports that is required by the business. And when I say MI report, for the people who folks who don't know, MI report are management information reports. These are something that is asked out of the automations that are being developed. What is the robot doing? How many cases they have done? What was the time? Who was the assignee? Things like that. So you can actually capture these kind of details when the robots are running. So whatever is required, you make sure that is being captured. If there is a dashboard in place, you have to make sure that the add fields are used so that the dashboards can utilize these values, be it inside Kibana or any other solution. Add fields will help you in actually making those values available for drag and drop and dissecting purposes. Own the versioning system. I'll show you in a bit how the source control will work and what is the best strategy to go about it. But you will be the owner of the source code, and you will be the one who will be doing the final pull request to the main ones after the development is finished. And then you discuss all the outstanding coding challenges. So like I said, if there are certain difficulties that is cropping up in your RPA project, you will be the go-to person in terms of understanding and resolving those things. You have to know all the varieties of solutions that is possible for that case, and maybe introduce the one that is the most suitable in that particular situation. The next phase, once the development is complete and they are done with your unit functional testing and things like that, is the testing part. And the most important things that you do in testing is code review. Okay, so code review is something. It's kind of like it's not a one-time activity, to be honest. If you prepare well, your codes that is coming out of the developers will be absolutely in shape and absolutely something that you will spend less time to rectify. So establishing a best practices is one thing. Making sure that the developers follow that is another. So personally, what I feel is having a weekly peer review sessions, and this is something that you have to do in initial days itself, because that's when the developers are in their own habit and not in the best practices habit itself. So in the initial phase, at least, having a weekly peer review, having a developer from that is developing into one project, go and sit with the other one and do a peer review and make sure that your best practices checklist are being followed. And similarly for that developer, some other one will do it, and maybe you get involved and do yourself as well at one particular point of time. That will make sure that the best practices are being followed and the code is getting generated in the right way. The other thing that you have to make sure that this is something that you don't point out as a fault to the developers. You don't have to do that. This is something that is out of practice. If they are practicing what has been preached, they will always be doing that. It's kind of a habit that gets formed over time. So don't hold them at fault when something is amiss. Don't make them feel that they have done something wrong, because that will be a discouragement for the developers. So as a person who is going to lead these folks, you have to understand from their perspective as well that they are trying their best. And this is all part of the habits that have formed over time. And if we are going to introduce something new, it is going to take some time to adjust. So no finger pointing at all. It's okay. Peer reviews will happen and corrections will happen, and that's totally fine initial days. The next comes is the DSD sign off. Whatever has been developed, it will be documented into a technicality of it. The next one is the functional testing. So all the test cases that has been developed in conjunction with the PDD, as a solution architect, you have to make sure that it covers all the scenarios, and it also covers your corner cases, something that is like, for example, some kind of input is amiss. What will be the robot's reaction in those cases and everything? Something that the business might not think of, but as a technical folk, you have to think of before designing the solution. The next one is the sustain phase, and in the sustain phase, this is something that kicks off once you go live. In the sustain phase, you have to have the change management in place. How your change request will flow in, what is the kind of signatory that will be required. You have to document the time time required to implement those changes, and you do the constant monitoring, the kind of reports that were expected, whether they are coming out in the same format or not. If something is amiss, whether do you want to do a hotfix, and when do you want to do that hotfix? What is the priority of it? And the last and probably the most important phase is supporting the run team, supporting the operations team. So when you introduce something new, some new project, the operations team is not aware of the technicality of it or the detail of it as such. Even though you provide the documents to them, it will be very difficult for them to start with it from day one. That is where your role comes in. You have to guide them through that this is the kind of exception that is expected, and this is the kind of things that you need to do to whenever these kind of things, kind of like standard operating procedures for those kind of exceptions, what you need to do exactly, maybe inform the business, maybe rerun the bot in certain cases and things like that. These things you have to make sure that they are well aware of.